What's good, everyone? Coach Damien here, the Shift Method. Hope everyone's having a wonderful day. By the time you're watching this, we're in February. I can't believe it's gone so quick. January usually seems like the longest month, but here we are in February 2023. This is going to be episode number 36. Just a couple quick announcements as always. Hey, we still got those training programs available for you. Again, personal training and online coaching can be quite expensive. So I wanted to make sure I provided someone or something for everyone that is affordable, but also has great quality. So if you go to the link in my Instagram bio or in the link that you see in the description, you guys can get custom training templates for 4 different goals. Again, those are $80 for 8 weeks of custom training. Again, a little bit more affordable, a little more accessible for people. If you want to have some coaching from the Shift Method, as always, we still have merchandise. We still have a bunch of stuff on the store. So be sure to check all that out in the description below. And last little update, if you want to see some cool stuff that is going on in my life and with the Shift Method, we have a newsletter. This started in the beginning of the year, comes out every other week. So if you would like to check that out, head to theshiftmethod.org and you can just put your email in and you will get those every other week. But enough about me. All right. We got on another guest. We had him on back way in episode 6. This was September of 2020, coming up on 3 years here. And the man doesn't need an introduction, but I'm going to let him talk about himself a little bit here because he's an amazing mentor of mine, a really good friend, and just an overall awesome human being. And that is Lucas Woody. Lucas, can you introduce yourself to the people for me?
Oh, why would I want to bore everybody with that stuff? No, thank you so much. You're too kind, Damien. Oh boy, Lucas Woody, based out of Lafayette, Indiana, but I never tend to find myself there. I'm all over the place, hence why I'm sitting in a ski lodge up in Michigan right now with some. I told Damien some mower headphones because I forgot mine, and so my brother-in-law, who owns a landscaping business, was like, "I think I got some under my truck seat." So here we are with some spotty Wi-Fi and some mower headphones, making it work from across the way. But about me, a performance coach. That's what I focus on, getting you from where you are to where you want to be and trying to give you some space, direction, and motivation to do it. Found myself right now doing that a lot in the form of sports performance, athletic performance at a high school in Lafayette, Indiana, McCutcheon High School. And then I'm also owning my own company, NextBetter, where we focus on helping individuals, helping organizations, especially small ones who are growing exponentially, but maybe don't know which direction that is that they are growing, to kind of figure out what's the next step, where do they want to go, how do I make sure my team is speaking the same language and moving in the same direction. So that's me in a nutshell.
Yes, sir. And yeah, like I mentioned, we won't go too much into it because there's an entire episode on this that I'll link, episode 6, where Lucas kind of goes in the ins and outs of his philosophy, his coaching, ideas and methods. The one thing I really liked about working with Lucas as a mentor and still as a friend is, yes, he has great knowledge from the strength and conditioning side, which is going to be our main conversation today, but also kind of those intangibles, those personalized skills of being a coach, which can go to any dimension, not just fitness. It can be life, relationships, business, you name it. These are principles that have carryover across all spectrums. So really, really great, insightful person to learn from. And we're going to get into some of his coaching philosophy, like you mentioned, how he works with McCutcheon High School here in a second. Now, Lucas, I know we've done a deep dive into your fitness background, but just in case you were like, I ain't going to watch that second podcast, I just want to watch the one right here. Can you do just a brief background of how you yourself got into fitness and ultimately into the profession?
Sure. I'll give you the 30,000 foot, 30-second view. Purdue University, went for wildlife biology because I love being outside, loved animals. Met my wife there, so it wasn't a complete waste of time. But as I tell my Purdue students, because I forgot to mention I teach entrepreneurship at Purdue as well, I tell them your degree does not define you, so don't get locked into that belief assumption. So at the end of that all, I was really into fitness and wellness. So I took some PE classes, liked it, went and got a job at a gym to A, have a free membership, and B, see if this world is right for me. Grew up in the ranks of that gym, from director of membership services to director of fitness, running a $250,000 department in personal training, and then up to the director of operations. Thought I could do it better, so I went and started my own business out of my garage, just like Amazon and Rogue Fitness and Maglite and Harley Davidson and half a dozen other companies that get started in a garage. And then just kind of kept going from there. I was getting my master's while I was doing the job at the health club. So I was working full time, and then got my master's in kinesiology from A.T. Still University, which is the first osteopathic medicine school in the nation. Got my sports massage therapy degree or diploma as well, when I was running my business out of my garage, and then started a brick and mortar, and then yada, yada, yada. So during that time, I was helping part-time with McCutcheon High School athletics and trying to help them with programming and working with their clients, because it was kind of, for me at that time, it was a feeder system for my business, but then it turned into a lot more. And so when an opportunity came up, I shut down my brick and mortar business, and they're like, hey, our guy of 18, 20 years is leaving, he's retiring, do you want to maybe take this opportunity? And I said, yeah, sure. This kind of good spot of my life. I have a 4-year-old now, so when he gets into school, having summers off is very enticing.
Yeah.
They won't be off. You know me.
Yeah.
I'll be doing a lot of stuff. It just won't be school 9 to 5 stuff.
Mhm.
So yeah, in a nutshell, that's kind of how I got to where I am from where I was. A lot of school was a part of it, but as we've talked about before, your degree does not define you. And if you don't have that ache to want to learn about it yourself, it doesn't matter how many pieces you have, you're going to get burnt out and quit pretty quickly, because you need to be your own strongest critic and your own best teacher. So
yeah, 1000%, sir. And I can't harp enough. I always talk about when I speak with fitness professionals, having that entrepreneurial background, even if you're someone who, I know everyone isn't. Some people are more risk sensitive. Some people maybe aren't as creative as others, but even having just a little bit of background in entrepreneurship in the fitness space is critical, and doesn't matter if you're a physical therapist, a strength and conditioning coach, especially if you own your own fitness business, whatever it is, having that kind of entrepreneurial background is going to be critical. You learn how to build relationships, you learn how to have multiple revenue streams, how to think critically in a dynamic setting, because, the industry is always changing, whether it's with COVID, whether it's with online modules that are coming in. So having that entrepreneurial background, I always tell students and people who are looking to get into the industry, you got to have something in it. So it's always a testament to you that it is very beneficial to get into that some way, somehow.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I apologize, we cut in and out just a little bit, but I think I got the sentiment of what you're trying to say, which is having that understanding of how to run a business is very vital to actually running a business, because there's a very big difference between owning your job and your job owning you. And that's very different than owning a business itself. So owning a business is very different than having a job that also happens to be your business. And so you have to decide, I think, very early, okay, this is going to be a business. I'm going to run it like it's a personal training job. And then, 3 or 4 years down the line, be like, okay, I want this to be a full-fledged business instead of just a job where I get paid, if that makes sense.
100%. Add that to the great quotes of Lucas Footy, right? Are you running your job, or is your job running you, or business rather, right? I love that. Well,
yeah,
very
absolutely.
good, sir. Very good. So now that people have a little bit of background, hopefully, again, I'll have that link to our very first conversation back in 2020. But now we at least know a little bit about Lucas. I want to kind of transition into talking about your current role at McCutcheon High School. So I heard you mention about the coach at the time who was working there for about 2 decades. He had his time, he retired, and you got to step in. How did you initially make that relationship with the high school? Did you know someone there? Like, how did that story happen?
Sure. So I'll tell that story, and then the general principle of kind of that of networking in general, right? Because a lot of people get really, really nervous about networking, about asking for favors.
Mm-hmm.
And so in a nutshell, for that specific topic, I was talking to a guy about taxes for a business. I wanted to start a business. This guy was a friend of one of my best friends, a guy that I'm doing a 30-hour adventure race this summer. That's a whole other story for a whole nother podcast, maybe one day. But he's like, hey, I got a tax guy. If you want to talk more about starting a business and what that looks like, I can talk to you. He can talk to you. And I was like, yeah, sure. So I went and talked to him. I'm a yes man, if you don't know, which is why I'm here on this podcast, more because I just like you and I appreciate what you do. But I say yes to a lot of different things. Sometimes it gets me in trouble. But I said, yes, let's talk to him. And so I went and chatted with him, and he liked my philosophy. I was just very open, very honest. I was who I was. And, he's like, hey, well, I know that the athletic trainer in McCutcheon High School is looking for a guy to do kind of a part-time after school weights role. And he doesn't want to, it used to be a babysitter role back when we lost the stipends in 2008, when the economy turned, we lost all the stipends for doing stuff like after school weights. And when they brought them back, they're like, hey, I'd like to do something a little bit more meaningful with that, with the money. And so I was like, well, I'm starting a business. I would like to work with athletes, maybe, I don't know. And so I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. Good connection, and then 7 years later, he's like, hey, we got a job open. But a big part of that to an opportunity was being open with myself and honest. It was connecting with the athletic director on a multitude of levels. So we talk a lot about culture and philosophy and building the right sort of ecosystem instead of just, hey, how many sets and reps? Because as you and I both know, that stuff is very important. You have to have competence in your degree and your ability, but that's not where I truly shine. That's if you come to me and say like, hey, let's talk about the best program for sprinting. I'm like, no, let's talk about how to build an organization where people want to be a part of it. And by the way, we also teach sprinting, right?
Yes.
So we connected there on that. And then when the job opened up, it became what it was. But I think the bigger picture lesson there for me is, never be afraid to ask for opportunities and for failures, or for opportunities and for favors, not failures. Because in any relationship that you're building, somebody has to go first, right? So I think back to this parable that, or this concept, when you're trying to build relationships with anybody, you think about like your neighborhood, right? You want to build a connection with your neighbor, right? But you can't just go up to your neighbor and be like, hey, can I offer to do you a favor, right? That's awkward. Right? Like, hey, can I offer to whatever, mow your lawn? Because they're gonna say, no, I'm good. But if you really truly want to build a relationship with somebody, one of the best things you can do is ask a favor, because what happens is you have created societal rapport with that person. You've created this basically this debt that they're trusting you by saying, yes, I will do this favor. I'll let you borrow my shovel, right? And then by doing that, you owe them something. And now one of the easiest things you can do is use that shovel and return it back better than you found it, right? Wash it off, make it look a little nicer. And now you've created trust. Hey, you allowed me to borrow your shovel. I'm going to give you your shovel back in return. And we have created a very, very small, but very significant agreement that we have fulfilled. Now your neighbor has the opportunity to ask a favor of you, because you asked a favor of them. They did it. They returned. Everybody was okay with it. It was kosher. Now the door is open for that exchange, right? Yeah. So take a case in point, me and you, we never would have met if I hadn't literally all I did was I Googled internships and clinical observations or something like that for Purdue University, right? And at first I met the dean of the health and sciences place. That maybe was a little too high of a person. He has no role whatsoever in putting people in clinical observations. But then I talked to Cassie and Lane Hero at the time, right? And Cassie's like, yeah, sure, we'll meet. And what I did was I offered a site for them to put in interns, right? They're always looking for places to go and people to do. And literally, and here we are now. I still have interns that come to me from McCutcheon through Cassie. I had, you and a lot of other great people throughout Human Movements days. And all of that started simply because I reached out and I said, hey, can we set up a connection, a time to talk? Same thing with Ryan, with McCutcheon. But it really, so for the listeners, it really just comes down to reaching out to people and asking, hey, can we start something? You got to give value back. There's no, you can't just ask and not be willing to give, but somebody's got to take that first step,
Absolutely. I like two things from that. One is something I've talked about ad nauseum here, but it needs to be said as always, because the great thing is, the worst thing someone can tell you is no. I mean, could they cuss you out? Sure. But then that's like, that's a good story for later with your friends. But yeah, the worst thing they could say is no. And like, at least maybe even if someone says no to you, maybe the seed has been planted and they can refer someone else to you if they know, like, hey, I really didn't want to work with you, Damien, my time, resources, etc. But I remember you asked me and you were very kind and polite. My friend so-and-so maybe could work with you. And so even a no can turn to a yes for someone else. So you just have to ask. And maybe people are shy and maybe people are thinking they'll take the first step first. And so there's that back and forth of like, you're waiting for someone else, like a date, like, right? Like if they like me, they're going to say something to me. And if both people think that, nothing is ever going to happen. So definitely taking that first little leap is going to be crucial for this side of the industry.
Absolutely. And I call that too at a higher level in business. I call that Kevin Costner syndrome, right? Because that idea of if I build it, they will come, right? If you're a business owner and you start this business and you're like, okay, I'm going to sit back and watch people come flocking because I have what they need. Never. Yeah. It will never happen, right? So so you have to get your name out there and let people know who you are and what you can do and that you're willing to help them out in some way. Now there's repercussions to that. You also can't give everything away for free, but
of course,
if you have good value and you're willing to give, that it usually comes back to you.
Yes. And the second thing I really like, which I've actually never really thought about this perspective, is that example you use with the neighbor and the shovel, where, oftentimes I think, let me provide value first. And for some people, again, that might be like a comfort thing where they're like, I don't want to owe this guy something. And he's like being nice to me. And like, is that genuine? Right. There's weirdos out there. And so people are like, no, don't touch my lawn, my guy. But if you lean on people's gooder nature, which, there are definitely narcissists and weird people out there, but on average, most people, neighbors, they want to help each other out to some extent. So instead of you offering something, maybe ask them first, and then you have to give back to them. So like that example where it's like, let's say in a business endeavor, right? You're a trainer and you have a friend and a potential client who is a financial advisor. Like instead of asking them first, hey, can I train you? And then it starts that weird dynamic where they're like, I don't want to, I'm good. Maybe instead you say, hey, I would like some help with my business for some financial advice. Would you mind if I schedule a consultation with you to help out? The barriers come down. You're going to them. They can start working on their craft with you. And then before you know it, they're asking you, hey, it was really great working with you, Damien. Do you still have some spots open for training? I'd like to work with you. So I never really thought about it from the flip side like that.
Saying go to your neighbor and ask to borrow their truck for the week, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it doesn't have to be huge. It doesn't have to be a huge endeavor, but something small because it's so much easier for you at that point to give back, and it gives them the opportunity to ask for something. Yeah. But if you're just offering something to them, they don't know what it is. They don't know what it feels like. They don't know what it sounds like. They're uncomfortable. They're scared, especially in the fitness world or the athletic performance world where people are uncomfortable to say that they need help. They're uncomfortable to ask for help. They're not sure if you or exactly what they need. Yeah, that's a huge, like, people don't realize for somebody who doesn't know you, that's a huge leap to go from I don't know you to future to you and your skill set. So something like you said, like, can I schedule a consultation to talk about it? Now, the other thing too is that they get the opportunity to give. So you're giving them an opportunity to provide something, right? And so now they feel good because it's their expertise, it's their focus, and then they can come back and provide for you, or you come back and say, hey, what to help you? I feel like I could really use your help. And then they're almost like, well, yeah, I should give him an opportunity to, because I helped out. And it's small, but it snowballs so quickly. Absolutely. Right. And the first step has been bridged, which is that desire to help each other.
100%, sir. Look at that little entrepreneurial lesson 101. I love it. But
right. That's how I do to get away from talking about fitness all the time.
But we're not going to get
away.
How'd
you start your fitness?
We're not going to get away.
No. I definitely want to help. I want to help. I want to talk.
Sir.
Let's talk about it.
Yes, sir. So shifting gears a little bit now, I want to talk about your experience as a coach with McCutcheon High School. I know you've kind of talked about in the past about your fitness philosophy. I want to kind of go into strength and conditioning specifically, because I know you work with youth athletes at this high school. So would you say that you have like a strength and conditioning philosophy? And do you differentiate that between youth and adults? Like if you're working with a pro or collegiate athlete versus working with a high schooler or middle schooler, like, do you make differentiations there in your philosophy or approach?
So I think it's really important for every professional, regardless of if it's in fitness or wellness or engineering or whatever, to understand the difference between your own philosophy and the approach that you take and what you do, right? So we've talked a little bit about this before, having what I call a purpose statement. Simon Sinek's Find Your Why is a really powerful resource I use a lot. But so my philosophy is, and always will be, I help people find the space, direction, and motivation to pursue or improve their entire well-being so that they can live fulfilling lives, right? Like that's what I do, and what endeavor I do it in can be different. So in regards to how I approach people with my philosophy, no, that doesn't change it, and it shouldn't. You shouldn't have any negotiables when it comes to living your philosophy, because as soon as you deviate from that, you're lacking integrity, and people find that out in a lot of different ways. You're either unfulfilled with what you're doing, you don't feel like you're genuine, you don't give as much as you could. And so I don't deviate from that. I'm always trying to give people space, direction, and motivation to improve their entire well-being. Now, that being said, the approach can be very, very different, because what you really are asking is how do you approach the different types of needs from different populations. So one of the populations that you talked about, which was the athletic, like the high level, collegiate level athletic world, those people, what they need is to like do a job so that they can make a paycheck, which for some of them it might be college, so it's a sponsor, it's a scholarship, or whatever, or they have higher level aspirations. So the way that I'm going to approach that is very different, because what they need is a little bit more intensity. They need a little bit more focus. They need a little bit more specialization, because they have very high level aspirations. For a high schooler, and this is one of the reasons I stayed at the high school level, high schoolers need to be guided to better understand why they do sports and why they make decisions and why they what path they might need to take as they traverse this thing called life at a very susceptible and impressionable age, right? So that's going to be a very, very different approach, because, like, for instance, I have high schoolers that come to me all the time and talk about things like, hey, can I sit today out because my one of my family members just went into relapse and I had to watch, right? Like that has nothing to do with sports, but it has everything to do with helping somebody improve their well-being. And so I'm going to take the time to have that conversation. Whereas maybe on a collegiate level, and I'm still not necessarily a therapist, so I'm not going to try to fix them, right? Because that's not, people don't need fixed, but I am going to help them understand that I care and help them understand how health and wellness could benefit the stresses that they're going through. But at a collegiate level, we're probably not even going to have that conversation, because they've had it with other people and they understand, like when they come to the workout space, this is our job, we got a job to do. Now, if you look at societal progression as we're seeing a lot of tendencies for people to be less mature emotionally as we come up. So it will come a time where college level athletes are bleeding those things out on the table, and they have to be addressed. But overall, do that type of stuff less. So for me, it's the approach of figuring out what that person needs to focus on their entire well-being. And when I say well-being, I'm talking about all 8 dimensions of wellness. We've had that conversation before. If the listeners don't know about it, there's a concept called 8 dimensions of wellness, and I fully believe in it. And physical wellness is just one of those dimensions. So for a collegiate level athlete, it's all in on that physical wellness. For some of those other individuals, we're probably helping them in other capacities. So that's probably the difference in my
that is of vital importance to have that difference. And I really like that distinction, because I feel at the the high school level, it can be even younger at the middle school, elementary level, coaches have the opportunity to be extraordinarily impressionable on young adults almost in high school. Obviously, at the collegiate level and the professional level, you can have coaches that make large impacts in people's lives and build bonds and great relationships. But, people in high school are at a pivotal point in their life where they're really trying to solidify their identity. They're trying to learn about themselves. They're trying to form really good habits that's going to last them hopefully for the rest of their either, sports life or for their life period. And so I really like that you focus on not just the physical aspect, but also those dimensions to make them better athletes and better people overall. So that is really, really cool that you take the time to emphasize that with them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And what it really boils down to is, in collegiate and high school, they're easy to differentiate. So that's why I'm focusing on them. Like you said, there's a multitude of levels of athletic performance, but the collegiate level and the high school level, they're there for very different jobs. Right. There's 5% at the high school level that will continue to go on to do high school or college level activities. So, only a few select ones are there for that purpose. Everybody else is there for having fun. So telling them you have to be just now we can go into the nuances of the strength conditioning part, but to be perfectly honest, people who are very excited about that, they can go and they can kind of find that on their own. Like how do you specialize and differentiate the programming for a collegiate level athlete versus that stuff's out there, right?
Absolutely. Now, going into your athletes specifically, remind me, do you work with all athletes across all sports, or are you specialized in one area at this high school?
Yeah, so I am responsible for the athletic performance classes at the high school. So I am technically considered a teacher. In fact, I'm going through my transition to teaching license right now, which is a 2-year program, some more school. So I'm considered a teacher at the high school. I'm teaching classes, and any program can take that class. At our school, it's called weights because it's it's old school and it's hard to change a class name. But yeah, so I'm we will have a football player right next to a volleyball player, soccer player right next to a non-athlete, to be honest. So that comes with its own challenges in terms of how do you approach these different individuals and make sure that they're motivated to want to show up and perform, when some kids are there to just goof off and some kids are there to actually to focus and get better and maybe have college aspirations.
Yeah,
that can be very, very challenging. But then we'll also work on, can we create an athletic class versus a non-athletic class, so we can shift the focus a little bit more.
No, absolutely. Now, when it comes to those, so having athletes in with, just general students who might be taking the class for a credit or just for an extracurricular, do you have any specific goals for your student athletes, or for, I imagine for the general students, it's like you said, those 8 dimensions of wellness, making sure they're healthy, they're happy, they're doing great things. Do you have any specific goals for those student athletes as they're working through their sport?
Yeah. So one of the challenges that you'll see with business in general, or any sort of focused endeavor, is if you're trying to help everyone, you're not helping anyone, right? Mm-hmm. So when it comes to businesses, like your business, right, you have to have, I don't like to call it a niche because that gets a little too buzzwordy, but like you have to have some sort of focus.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Because if you tell people, hey, I do this thing, but then I also change your tires on your car, right? Like people are going to get mixed signals. So with our weights class, we have to focus on something, right? We're an elective class, we're elective course, and not required for their graduation. So we have the liberty of focusing a little bit more on what we want to focus on, instead of fixing, like, we still have standards we have to abide by, but
of course,
we don't have to necessarily focus on those things they need in order to graduate. So we have designed our course and our program to be athletic performance based. So if you're in this course, whether you're an athlete or not, you're going to be treated as such, and you're going to be training as such. And so there are students who, and don't get me wrong, this is our first year, second semester, right? So these IK 36, where we talk about how different our program has come since we first started it. But in essence, our goal is to get to a place where people understand when they're in this course, they are focused on trying to. You guys did something. We're trying to focus. Sorry, I had to talk to my family members, but we're trying to focus on getting to a place where they understand, like, we're here to be serious about our training. And so that can happen in a lot of different ways, and every school's a little different. So you have to, do with what you can in the parameters you find yourself. But for us, what that's going to mean is setting up and developing a culture where it's just understood, like, you come in here to work. That's how we do it.
Yeah.
To play around. We're not here to goof off. We have what we call above the line and below the line attributes and attitudes. And so every day we're asking them, today we were above the line or below the line. That's from a book from a guy who just got accused of a lot of different things. So people are gonna be like, well, that's horrible, yada yada. Like, forget the dude, right? Who cares who the dude was? The concept helps people make good decisions about life, and that's what we're focused on, this concept. So get rid of the dude, whatever. Other schools, they have an entire different room. So I know the strength and conditioning coach up at Penn High School, Concord High School, Davis High School here around the area, and they have different sections of the school that are dedicated, it's a whole nother fitness facility. It's a little bit more Globo Gym style. And that's where they have elective classes on general wellness, right? So the soon to be 23-year-old who doesn't do sports, who just wants to lift weights and get in shape. So there are a lot of opportunities for a lot of different schools and a lot of different options. But the big thing is, you gotta, to the point I made earlier, you gotta pick the thing you want to focus on, because if you try to help everyone, you're not going to help anyone. So it comes with challenges, but the more we grow it to the direction we want it, the better opportunities we're going to have to succeed there.
Yes, sir. But hey, I know you love challenges, so I know you're going to make it work, and you're going to make them, better people, better athletes, better just students overall. So I know the good work. And like you said, it's the beginning stages. So a lot's going to change, and I'm sure you're going to come up with some really fun, creative strategies, and the students are in very good hands with you, sir. And I just want to say, I appreciate you so much for taking the time to come on, give us a little about your philosophy and what you do with those students. Anything that you want to plug to let people know where to find you, any services you might be offering, whatever you'd like to say.
Oh man, I am always open to conversations. I tell people that all the time. So if there's ever a coach, I'm a coach of coaches. That's what I've always considered myself. So even though I'm at the high school level and I coach the high schoolers, I also have 2 interns right now. We have a lot of other coaches. I'm not the only one doing it. So it's not like I'm the guy standing up on the podium with everything to say. I'm the stage, but even though I'm still the high school coach, I also am trying to coach other coaches. So if they're who are about to graduate and they just don't know what they want to do, they're always welcome to reach out to me. My email's lucas@nextbetter.com. They find me on pretty much any social at Coach Lucas Woody. And I'd be happy to reach out to them. I love conversations. I don't have really anything to plug, because if it turns out that I can help somebody to high level and they think that I'm helpful in those first conversations, and they'll say, hey, what can we do to maybe form an alliance here and help me get to where I want to go? But if they're just looking for a little direction, I'm happy to listen to them and give them my thoughts based off the experience I've had. So yeah, at lucas@nextbetter.com or Instagram at Coach Lucas Woody.
Yes, sir. I'll be sure to plug those down below. Y'all know where to find me. You can find me at _shift_method on Instagram and TikTok. Hopefully going to start doing some YouTube shorts as well. Again, theshiftmethod.org if you want to check out any of the services I offer, as well as the merchandise. Would love y'all to check that out. Appreciate y'all. And Lucas Woody, thank you so much again, sir. Hope you have a wonderful day, and best of luck with your training up in Michigan, my man.